drinking out of a Hewlett and Dunn coffee mug. Brenden drinking some iced coffee from Shenanigans Irish Coffee Brewery. And we're going to have a great time today. We got a great show in store for you. Quickly, take a picture with your phone of the QR codes. We're broadcasting this show live, 8 channels on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. And by far, and Brendan's right, Facebook still dwarfs kind of everything. Lots of people watch on Facebook. So thank you.
We're old, Rob.
Well, yeah, but we got new stuff all the time.
And so old people are on Facebook. So go ahead, and we got the new QR for those who want to watch us on Facebook. You snap that bad boy, go ahead and follow it. Here's the thing, guys. You got to set your notifications on your phone to be on. If you do, whatever platform you're following us on or you watch us on, you'll get a notification from your phone that says we're live, and then you won't ever miss a beat.
Yeah, and there's a lot of content on this channel. Look, great one today. We got the College Football Roundtable on this Friday. Mark Schlabach. Mark works his ass off. I mean, I'm telling you, ESPN.com lives outside of Athens. He's everywhere. He's going to be on with us. Second half, Roman Harper, SEC Network. I was texting with Roman over the weekend. I lost our bet on the Iron Bowl, a steamer pack of crystals. It's your option to have cheese or not. So we'll talk with him in the second half. Doug Dean checks in from the studios there in Vestavia, Walhalla, Birmingham. It's going to be a great one. So, Mark, let's tee it off with you. I know you love golf, but you also love football. But what we all love is to hear what you have to say. And first off, thank you more than you know for sharing your time with us. We really appreciate it.
No, great to be with you guys.
Your front porch looks like the front porch that I had for many years, that we had in my family for 93 years. We just recently sold it here in Ocala, Florida.
This is actually our sunroom, and I'm pretty sure this was originally the back of the house.
I love it.
It looks like it's got that old Florida kind of, we call them cracker homes down here.
They moved the house from, we have railroad tracks behind our property. They moved it, rolled it up.
I love it.
Pretty awesome.
Mark, there's been so much happening with college football. You get started, really, the SEC coaching changes and all like that. You want to start with, you did a great job. We were all, Frank's been on it. You were on it with the Lane Kiffin story, and kind of take it from there and the collateral fallout from it.
Now, I mean, I've been over to Oxford 3 or 4 times this season. I went over Thanksgiving Day night, drove to Tuscaloosa, and I'll give you an idea. I knew not only was I having to drive 6 hours from Thomasville, Georgia to Tuscaloosa on Thanksgiving Day night and going through Albany and Dothan and Columbus and Montgomery, Alabama. I get to my hotel. I stayed at Nick Saban's hotel, the Alamite, which is the first time I'd stayed there in downtown Tuscaloosa. Really nice place. But I get there, and I'd made a plate of Thanksgiving leftovers and left it at my in-laws. And so I knew I was either eating Waffle House or nothing. And I get to the hotel, and she said, the bar's open. I said, well, is the restaurant closed? She goes, yeah, I'm sorry. She said, there's nothing open. And so I'm on DoorDash, and I'm talking to Marty Smith, and I just hit a pizza. And then I realized like 10 minutes later, I go, crap, Marty, I think I just ordered that gas station pizza, Hunt Brothers. He goes, oh, it's awesome. You love it. He said it's the best.
Yeah.
And he said, well, get this. I'm driving between Tuscaloosa and Columbus, Mississippi, and they ran out of cars in the Birmingham airport, and I'm driving an 8-seat van. And I'll get to that later. But so that was how it was going to go. And I got there about 10:30 Thursday night and woke up at 5:30 and drove to Stark Vegas for the Egg Bowl. And then Lane comes out and says they've broken our locker room. And then a fight breaks out on the field, and he's yelling at the Mississippi State AD. And then he's screaming at reporters. And I was like, Lane, calm down, man. And then I just sat in the parking lot outside the Manning Center for about 3 days, waiting for the guy to make up his mind, which I had known. I'm talking to people in Ole Miss and LSU and everywhere else. I mean, I figured for 3 weeks he was gone. He wants to coach in a 100,000 seat stadium. He wants to coach at a place with a name. talking to some people close to him, they felt like he needed to stay in Oxford because from a personal standpoint, it was the best place for him. But I'm not going to criticize a guy for taking a better job and making $13 million a year and going to a place like LSU. But you cannot hold a program hostage and threaten to take all your assistant coaches with you if they don't let you coach in the playoff. I mean, it's the old cliche, you can't have your cake and eat it too. And that's exactly what he was trying to do. So I commend Keith Carter, the Ole Miss AD, and the Chancellor, Glenn Boyce, for, putting their foot down and said, no, this isn't going to be a 4-week infomercial for the next LSU coach. You're either coaching us or you're not.
Yeah. Mark, one interesting thing, one of my Ole Miss friends growing up with, a friend of his, there were two people gave 10 and one gave 20. His friend gave the $20 million check and he said, use this to keep Kiffin. And when they realized he was leaving, he said, roll it into the Grove Collective. So I think that Grove Collective, remember Klepsch speakers and PV speakers out of Meridian? There's a lot of money people don't know about. What do you think? Is Ole Miss kind of the adopted team by a lot of people? They don't have a coach. This is the best season they've ever had. It's a kind of a cool story. And also, have you had a chance to talk to Pete Golding or Joe Judge?
Not on the record.
Okay.
I will say, I think there's a lot of people pulling for him. I mean, they're a great story regardless. You got a Division II transfer quarterback, Trinidad Chambliss, who was gonna, was in Heisman consideration earlier in the season. They won 11 games for the first time in school history, and now they're doing it with a new coach. I don't know that Pete Golding was the best available option, but I think he was the best available option at that moment because they were trying to keep the roster intact. They were trying to get as many coaches as they could to stay and trying to keep a bunch of guys out of the transfer portal in January. Talking to people in Oxford, Lane was close to some guys like Quan Lacey and Chambliss, guys he brought in there. Pete Golding recruited most of those guys. That was the interesting stuff on Sundays was when you kept hearing Lane say, the guys voted, they want me here. They want me coaching in the playoff. And then it comes later to find out it's not exactly true. But I've seen, I didn't think there was any way possible Lane could have an uglier exit than he did at Tennessee. But damned if he didn't pull it off at Ole Miss. That airport scene was incredible. I'll never forget it. I mean, there's a little 5-year-old kid in front of me shooting Lane Kiffin double birds. And I took a photo, and that's the cover of my future Lane Kiffin biography. In my story, Virgil Osbury at his press conference in Baton Rouge on Monday, Virgil Osbury, the LSU AD, said they told him mid-flight, we're not picking him up in Tupelo anymore. We're going straight into Oxford. And he's like, oh, hell, they're going to shoot missiles at us. But it was amazing. And, I talked to probably 20 people at the airport, Ole Miss fans. And at one point I quit talking to students because every other word out of their mouths was F. And I couldn't use it. So I started talking to some older guys, and I met this guy, Joe Ignatius, who played baseball at Ole Miss, who said he was naive. And then, he didn't think Lane would do it to us, but damned if he didn't. And then he said, I just really feel bad for my son, Bo. I said, well, Bo what? He goes, Bodacious Ignatius. And I said, son, you just made my story. Greatest SEC name ever.
Oh, Frank, jump in, top that one.
Well, I'm sorry, but we don't really have a lot of empathy. We lived without the GOAT for 17 years. We watched our coach go win national championships over in Alabama. So look, all fair in love and war and recruiting and coaching, poaching, and the whole 9 yards. We knew this was coming again 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
It was a fait accompli. All we had to do was just make sure he didn't change his mind or, get a new hot yoga class that was more promising than coming. And look, here's the thing. It was going to be messy no matter how Lane did it. That's the trail that he leaves. But I think Ole Miss made the right choice. I don't think you can have him stay there and coach in the playoffs. I also think it's going to be odd that Charlie Weiss Jr. It's a Trojan horse attempt. So, look, there's a lot of intrigue going on. Alabama and LSU had the most venomous rivalry for the last 17 years before Saban hung it up 2 years ago. We're now going back to the 60s. LSU and Ole Miss will be the rivalry game. I think, for LSU, look, we come out smelling like a rose, cost us a lot of money, but we have to be aware that this is going to probably be our fate one day too. When the girl cheats on you, don't be surprised that she doesn't do the same thing and turn around and do it later on you.
Yeah.
So my question for you, Mark, is what do you see are the next steps that Lane has to take now that break has happened? He's turned a new page. What are the things he has to do at LSU to get us back competing for championship football? Where do you see his first steps once we get through this early recruiting period today?
He's got to figure out a way to keep.
Well, we'll get to that question.
I'm
here.
sure he was going to say he has to figure out a way to keep Blake Baker as a defensive coordinator.
Here we go.
I think he's going to Tulane.
Yeah, here we go, Mark.
No, I don't think he's going to keep Blake Baker. I think
Tulane.
he's the guy at Tulane. But you got to figure out a way to keep Corey Raymond, keep the interim coach Frank Wilson, the mayor of New Orleans, and I think he's trying to still get Kevin Smith, the running backs coach at Ole Miss, because that's the best way to get Lacey. Lacey's only sophomore. I think he's got to find a quarterback. I don't think Michael Van Buren's the answer. Probably, maybe Lane can get more out of him, but I would not be surprised to see Chambliss or Simmons transfer to LSU to be with Lane. I think there's going to be a bunch of players that probably leave. Some guys like him, some guys don't. So, I know one thing. I tried to book a room at the Marriott Courtyard in Oxford for next September 19th, and it's already $3,700 a night. So won't be staying there.
Stock up on your mustard now.
Yeah. Doug, jump in here with this. That $3,700. That's like a stock futures price.
Mark, Doug Dean in Birmingham. First of all, it's an honor to share the airwaves with you, and I just want to compliment you. You know how to turn a phrase or three, my friend. And a couple of us on here consider ourselves amateur aspiring writers. I can't speak for your Gen Z readers who insist on a max 44 characters, or it's too long, don't read. But those of us that still appreciate great writing, I like.
I appreciate that very much. Nah, I learned from one of the best, Mr. College Football, Tony Barnhart. Gave me my first job.
Friend of the show. And here's the best testament I can give to your writing ability. Even when you're unkind to those Auburn Tigers, I still step back. It's still good writing. It's still very good. Yeah. I'm an Auburn guy, but on this show, we really try to be fair to everybody across the country, especially here in the Deep South.
I haven't been to Auburn in a while since I was escorted back to the interstate by a state trooper during Cam Newton Gate, but I almost went back this year. But then I ended up having to go to the Egg Bowl.
We would at least my tailgate would treat you as royalty. I guess my take on all of this is if I were writing an article, I might title it, if my public editor approved, there's enough hypocrisy to go around. And to Ole Miss, I want to say, really? Like you didn't know who you were hiring when you brought Lane. Granted, it was different. You were bringing him in from FAU, and he was, I hope my hotty-toddy friends don't take this offensively. I don't mean it that way. But in some ways, that was a rehab opportunity, because at the time when he came to Ole Miss, none of us knew that the baseline of winning at Ole Miss could be moved up this high. I mean, I'm happy for him. I want Ole Miss to be competitive. And honestly, my fun story of the year has been Vanderbilt, and why wouldn't it be everyone's story that we finally do not have a cellar dweller year in, year out in Nashville? But then the hypocrisy of, you say on the one hand, you can't coach our team. You might be trying to pick off players and coaches, and they bring Charlie Weiss Jr. in as your Paisan Duffy, Matt Moscona ranted about yesterday. So I tend to step back from it all and say winning solves most of this. But you're right, Duff. LSU needs to be ready emotionally as a fan base. if the Dallas Cowboys come calling, or whoever it may be, that at some point Lane is going to consider it a better job or a bigger stage. I do think I'll be very surprised if Ed O and Les Miles can win it all there. Be careful betting against Kiffin to have a big year, but it's a tougher setup. If you had to handicap it right now, Mark, and you were the athletic director at LSU, what's a reasonable time frame that you would give Kiffin to at least have a deep run in the playoff with LSU,
1 year.
Mark?
Maybe
Wow.
maybe next season.
You know us well.
I mean, with the transfer portal, anything's possible, especially if they back up what they told him during negotiations about the NIL and revenue sharing they're going to have for him building his roster. But no, I've always said LSU was the best job in the country because every kid in Louisiana dreams of their stadium on Saturday night. I don't think it's much as of an advantage as it once was because of the transfer portal, but it's a better job than Florida because you're not having to compete against Florida State and Miami for kids or Georgia because Louisiana kids just want to go to LSU. And the Florida people, guys, Florida thought they had him locked and loaded 3 weeks ago.
They did.
And I mean, they
did.
You know, Shane Matthews and Chris Doring and guys like that were texting me, and I was like, LSU. They're like, really? We're a better job. We're a better brand. I said, guys, Steve Spurrier's not standing on that sideline. So I don't know. But I do know the Georgia game in Athens earlier this year when they couldn't stop Georgia in the fourth quarter. Yeah. People told me that was affirmation to him that he couldn't compete every year in the SEC at Ole Miss because he couldn't get the defensive players and the defensive linemen he needed.
Mark, another question for you, and we got, if you can stay with us till about 25 after, if it's okay. Diego Pavia, I think he's the most impactful player, elevator, making everybody around him better in the room that I've seen since Cam Newton in 2010 or Tim Tebow in 2008. I think it's an incredible story. I've watched him for a long time. We all have. Can he win the Heisman Trophy without playing in a conference championship game?
I would say unless Julian Sand throws for 400 yards against Indiana or Fernando Mendoza does the same thing against Ohio State, I'm voting for Pavia. I agree with you. I don't think there's a player in college football who has transformed a program more than Pavia. I mean, and Cam Newton, look, Auburn had great players. They had Nick Fairley.
Yeah.
Florida was a good program when Tebow got there. I'm not taking anything away from those guys, but I mean, it was Vanderbilt and Clark Lee. I love him. He's one of the smartest guys I've ever talked to. He was about to get fired until he brought in Jerry Kill and Tim Beck and Diego Pavia. And look, people don't like Pavia's bravado and probably wish his family would behave a little more in the stands. But he's unbelievable. And my favorite Pavia story is Barton Simmons, the GM there, when I was up there a few weeks ago, said that when they first started recruiting Pavia, he was getting ready to put him on the phone with Clark Lee. And his first conversation with Clark Lee, Pavia said, "I'm coming to Vanderbilt and we're winning every effing game."
And you know what else, Mark? Things we didn't think wasn't on our bingo card on Wednesday. Vanderbilt flipping kids from Georgia and Alabama.
Yeah, that one. Who's the comedian Nate Bargatze? Is that his name? That was on game day. He went on game day and said, "I want what's the kid's name? Curtis."
Jared Curtis from Nashville Christian.
I want Jared Curtis to come to Vanderbilt, and I think he wrote a check to help make that happen.
Mark, I wanted to go back. Mark, I wanted to go back to the Florida situation, and obviously, my father's Buddy Martin. We own Gatorbait magazine, Gatorbait Media. We were very close to all this stuff, obviously. With the fallout, saying that Florida really thought they had him locked up. There's lots of, I'm sure you've scuttlebutt that's come out about, Scott Strickland, the AD, the handling with the big blue blood donor and sort of him making the decision to pull out before the Egg Bowl on the decision on if they should have the offer on the table. Do you think that was a good move for Florida in the sense of saying, hey, we want to know before the Egg Bowl if you're in or not?
No, yeah, I think it became obvious he was going to LSU, and I don't think Strickland could sit there and wait. Scott Strickland could sit there and wait to make a statement. I will say, in Scott Strickland's defense, I think it came out maybe in a CBS story, and I'm not taking anything away from John Talty because he does a good job. But if it came out that Kiffin was worried Strickland was too meddlesome in the football program, I would think if Strickland was too meddlesome, he would have made Billy Napier hire an offensive coordinator about 3 years ago. He probably wasn't meddlesome enough. But, I think Lane was probably turned off by the demands to hire an NFL general manager, if that was indeed the case, because he wanted to bring his own people with him. I'll tell you, Sumrall, I don't know him at all, but there are a couple people, colleagues at ESPN that work with me who know him well and say he's one of the best people you'll ever meet. I think he's a hell of a football coach. He just hired a great offensive coordinator from Georgia Tech, Buster Faulkner. He's bringing in Brad White, the DC from Kentucky, who's a really good coach. Buster Faulkner is the real deal. The tech.
Brad White's been killing the Gators for a couple of years now. So
Buster will get more out of that offense than Napier did.
Yeah.
Mark, it's on the minds of most, I suspect, most of our viewers this morning, for obvious reasons. Tomorrow in the Benz is this intriguing, the dynamics of Georgia and Alabama. There's so many storylines that, it wasn't a couple of weeks ago, my Georgia buddies and some of the Bama guys were saying, what do we have to gain by playing in this SEC championship game? You risk injury. If you win, you already had the bye locked up. I think by the time this week rolled around, I think both of their competitors, God knows Kirby Smart, I consider him the dean of the SEC and coaches at the moment, and he's earned that title since Saban retired. But is it overdone that Alabama is sort of in the head of Georgia? I think sometimes these games absolutely came down to one or two plays. They usually do. And sometimes a team makes those plays because they've got a couple more playmakers. But as I've watched this Georgia team, they just seem to get about 5 or 10% better and stronger every week. And I wouldn't want to play Georgia early in the playoff if I could. I don't know if I'd want to play Bama either, the way the firepower they've got. But what are some angles you would look for in this game?
Yeah, tomorrow? Kirby, if you've heard him the last couple of weeks talking about, am I the only one that still cares about winning the SEC title? Look, I went to Georgia, and I would take that guy at any program in the country, the DNA, because he just does it different and gets more out of his guys. But, they lost their quarterback last year against Texas, which killed them in the playoff. So there is an injury concern about it. Both teams are really banged up. Georgia's not going to have Drew Bobo, their starting center. That hurt them against Georgia Tech in the second half. Alabama doesn't have LT Overton. I think Kelby Collins, another defensive lineman's out. I'll be surprised if Jam Miller plays. Kirby's beat everybody.
Not sure about the tight end.
Cuevas. Is that Josh Cuevas?
Yeah.
Who was really big in the first game on third down, which is why Alabama converted its first 8 third downs and went, I think, 13 for 19 in the game. There is a mental aspect to it, though, Doug. He's beaten everybody else, and he's 1-7 against Alabama. They're 0-3 against them in the SEC championship game. I think the first 4 or 5 years, Saban just had better players, but I don't think that's an excuse anymore. And they got to flip it. And I think that is motivation. It's hard to beat a team twice in the same season. I think this team is better, definitely on defense, than they were back in September. Guys like Ellis Robinson, the cornerback, has gotten better. They've had some young guys step on the defensive line. I think the last 3 games, they got a 41% pressure rate, which is way better than what it was in the first half of the season. But, Ty Simpson, I love the kid. He's one of the best kids I've met in the last couple of years. Yeah. Played really well at the beginning of the year. He hasn't been good lately, hadn't been accurate. And Rob probably need to put Ryan Williams on the back of a milk carton right now because that dude is vanished.
Yeah.
It is one of the great mysteries in college football, how they can't get more out of him.
Kind of the obvious follow-up, and none of us know, and we've seen the college football selection committee, shift their thinking week to week. In some cases, I'd be nervous if I'm a Notre Dame fan, among others, where I think Miami's on the outside looking in. But as it relates to the question of the loser of the SEC championship game, do you get punished for that, or is that only if you find yourself on the wrong end of a blowout loss, which is unlikely by either team?
I think if Georgia loses, they drop to 5 probably. I think you have to put Bama in front of them in that equation, beating them twice. I said yesterday on the radio in Tuscaloosa, and I'm sure they loved it, and I was probably wrong. I don't think Alabama is automatically in with a loss. I think they put themselves in danger. I think they've got a ton of good wins. I think at one point they beat 4 teams in a row that were ranked at the time.
Yeah.
But you got 3 losses and you're playing with fire a little bit. And this committee, you just don't know. But I think the fact they moved Alabama in front of Notre Dame this week means Notre Dame is in bigger trouble than Alabama. I'm rooting for chaos. I want Duke to win the ACC championship game. I want to see Tulane and James Madison
with 5
in there.
losses.
Because I think they do it. I don't think they would take
Manny Diaz
I don't
loves
think
you.
they would take 5-loss Duke over James Madison or Tulane.
Speaking of James,
not going to matter when IU is playing Texas Tech for the national championship.
Yeah, perfectly normal, Mark. Frank, jump in here quickly. We got a couple of minutes before Mark's got to go.
Doug, you're definitely a brother from another Auburn mother, because that was the exact 2 questions I was going to ask. I think Kirby is going to learn from what South Carolina and Auburn really showed Alabama's weaknesses, and I think Georgia wins this ball game. When that happens, I think they are in deep trouble with 3 losses. How can you put them over a Vanderbilt team that just destroyed their rival? How could you put them over again these other teams that you're talking about? If they're upsets, I think Alabama with 3 losses, it's going to be a hard pitch. And look, they don't have their best pitch man anymore. Nick Saban was the best coming out of the last game of the year to get himself in a 4-man or a 12-man or a 2-man playoff. What do you see if they do get beaten? I think they do in the Georgia Dome.
Depends on the bid Steelers
I mean,
out there.
if BYU won too, if BYU beat Texas Tech, that would be another
absolutely
problem for them. But I don't think you could take. I love the Vanderbilt story, but I don't think you can take Vanderbilt over Bama because Bama beat them head to head. And then I'm just telling you all what the selection committee is going to think. Maybe, I think head to head, and I was at that game, and Vanderbilt had a couple of red zone turnovers that really hurt them. Bama has better wins than Vanderbilt probably, even though they just crushed Tennessee. I love how Hunter Yurachek says, well, they're really impressive. Rivalry win, beat up Tennessee really bad. Well, why aren't they in the top 12? Well, they don't have any ranked wins. Well, they just beat Tennessee and knocked them out of the damn rankings.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, I will tell you this. If all 3 of them went at it in a round robin, the one that really needs to stay home is Oklahoma, because they looked horrible against us and we were wretched out on the field. Absolutely wretched. They have like 0 offense unless your defense breaks down. I would tell you right now, Vanderbilt and Alabama are both better than Oklahoma. I
wouldn't disagree with you. Mateer just hadn't been the same since he came back from injury. They're really good on defense. We'll see. I'm a big Kalen DeBoer fan, so I think he'll be fine.
All right, Mark.
I would like to share some
him.
breaking news that Billy Napier now
hired. Is it official?
Yeah, it's official.
I wrote that last. That's a good job for him. Billy's a good coach. Just couldn't get it done in Florida. Did a really nice job at Louisiana. It's like they just. I'm glad Summerall's already hired Buster Faulkner, because the guys who've gotten fired down there just couldn't get the OC thing right.
Yeah.
And I don't know if y'all saw that story I wrote about Lane, but when Muschamp was at Florida, he tried to hire him as his OC, and they came back. The Florida ADs came back and said, "You can't hire him. The SEC won't let us hire him." And Nick Saban hired him into Alabama 2 weeks later.
Wow, Mark, that
know,
is a shocker. But before you go, Doug, did you have a question?
Well, I was just going to say there's the debate after we are going to have controversy and anger. It's the question of who is the party, the aggrieved parties, pretty soon on Selection Sunday. But a year ago, it was Florida State. That felt criminally unfair for a team that, through no fault of their own, get an injury. And this year, does Ole Miss get dinged? Apparently not, by not having their head coach. I think they showed us that. But the question is, do we make things better going to 16 teams? I kind of like the chaos and controversy of, if you're not good enough to make the top 12, and granted, I'd like to get rid of these automatic conference championship bids, but I don't know that we make it better going to 16 teams. Your thoughts, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, it's just going to water it down more. But I think if you're going to keep the G6 or G5 automatic bid, and frankly, if you're going to keep giving a bid to the ACC champion, you should probably have to go to 16. Miami's going to be upset, but Miami really hadn't beaten anybody, and Notre Dame hasn't beaten anybody because they're signed the contract to play all those teams from the ACC. So I don't know. Texas has told us the playoff is going to be hurt without Texas in it. So we got to figure out a way to get Texas in there every year too.
Yeah,
because they're so entitled.
Yeah, it's 30 million people in that state we know of, and a lot of TV sets. But one thing before you go, Mark, you saw that article yesterday that was written. Pete Cordelli and Ellis Johnson sent it to me about the SEC versus the Big Ten TV numbers, and the brilliance of Greg Sankey, the contiguous geographical footprint. You've just got all these rivalries where people know each other. Like, when I worked at Duncan Williams out on the trading floor, our chief trader, he won Trader of the Year every year, Adam Tooley, Florida Gator, and he's from Toronto. He's an American citizen now. But you had Duncan Williams, of course, Alabama as it gets. But that was the fun of it. Me, Auburn, Tennessee, my sales assistant, Tennessee. That's what makes this conference so special. And look, I got to tell you, thank you a million for being with us. Let people know how they can follow your great work, because the power of the pen, the written word, is like lifting weights with your brain when you read one of your articles. We want you. I'm with Doug. We want you back on here whenever you can do it, because you're great at telling the stories. And as far as your mentor, Tony Barnhart, love him. He is so kind to the Touchdown Club of Memphis and to this show. And he's not allowed to retire till he's about 100. That's what we're hoping.
Yeah. I'm gonna see him tomorrow night. I think it'll be his last one, probably.
God.
No, I appreciate it. Just follow me on ESPN.com. I don't tweet the gutter of humanity.
I've heard you say that before. All right, you going deer hunting?
I haven't been yet. It's unbelievable. My buddy already shot the best one, so I just need to go get a doe for some jerky, and that's it.
Well, come on down to Marksville, Louisiana. We'll get you in a couple of deer stands, and they're big as elk down there.
I need to come out there.
I should mention,
place and give me some ducks too.
Yeah, you're welcome aboard anytime.
Mark, you'd be welcome in my Central Alabama hunting camp anytime, sir. So the PSA, Rob, there is a dog available for adoption. His name is Juice. You can find him at the breeder in Oxford, Mississippi.
I would happily write that story if it were true, but I actually called the kennel, the hard journalism I do, and he did not want to talk to me. And I said, he's a beautiful dog. He reminds me of my dog. And then we talked about Tubby running on the field, and he says, that's Lane's dog. He owns it.
Okay. All right, Mark.
Cool.
Look, thank you.
Him and feeds him, but he owns him.
Yeah, well, he better nothing like a dog, especially a yellow dog. We love them like that. But
Lane's got a new dog. He's got stripes.
Yeah. Mark, thank you so much, man. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, guys.
Tell Tony Barnhart we said hello. Appreciate it.
I will. Thank you.
All right,
See you,
Roman Harper should join us here momentarily. I know Roman said the SEC Network put something on him at the last minute. There's Sammy Bones, Sammy Hagar's first cousin. 10 pounds, 11.
Hey, Duff, real quick, Duff, how does it feel that you sold your soul at LSU?
I don't really have a problem.
Good,
honest to God, I'm looking forward to that offense. When Clemson rolls in, my butt's going to be sitting in them two seats, and it's going to be showtime. By the way, what a crazy schedule. We're going to play y'all, Tennessee, Ole Miss, and A&M, and we got Texas, Alabama, coming in. It is going to be, those 9 games are going to be absolutely fantastic. And look, I'm sorry, Ole Miss. I have empathy. I do. I really do. We lived through it. We watched the GOAT win our national championships over in Tuscaloosa, and it was heart-wrenching, gut-wrenching. And look, let me tell you, pace yourselves, boys. Y'all have had a wild week. This thing lasts a while. You better hang on. I'm telling you, it's hard.
Frank,
it's hard.
Well, and
you
y'all haven't won
my only
anything yet
wish
either, except for the Lane Kiffin game. And I think, and sorry, Doug, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I see all the swirling around of all this stuff. Look, LSU has likes every coach that has a couple of shakes in their pocket with prescription pills. They like the crazy guys down there.
Well, crazy works well down here, but here's the thing: we've got 4 national championships. Played for a 5th. Shouldn't have had to play our main rival in that game. We'd have boat raced Oklahoma State by 35. We're good. And look, when Ed Ogeron and crazy Les Miles can win national championships at LSU, I'll take Lane Kiffin any day.
Les should have won.
I just think Auburn.
I was just going to say that, and I wasn't on my game of making this point with Mark. Well, he was great. Good get having him on, Rob. I wish there were more honor at the level of the governance of the NCAA. And Saban said it, most have said it. We need to acknowledge that it was a complete blunder with the calendar, setting things up where, the excuse for taking a coach in the middle of a season or late season, even if they're going in the playoff or still playing for a big bowl game, if they had gotten that right, I wish we were still old enough and gentlemanly enough that honor mattered, where the powers that be would every single coach would say, I'm not going to accept a job until we finish this season with my team. Will the world really come to an end if they wait till the first week of January?
I think you're right on that. But you know what? I got to go back to Frank. That Saturday night in Tiger Stadium, just iconic brands. You've got billion-dollar-plus brands, according to the Wall Street Journal, right now, 3 of them that are not ranked: LSU, Auburn, and Florida. Okay, there have been other teams in the SEC that have had a rise lately, while those teams have been over on the side of the road with 4 bald tires and empty gas tank. It ain't going to be very long. Looking at these coaching hires, and I've been texting with Ryan Silverfield. It's pretty cool. I told him, I said, look up. I told Dudley Dawson to go introduce himself yesterday at the press conference. Silverfield, Golish, and Sumrall. These are 3 guys that are 4 o'clockers. They're in the office at 4 a.m. Pete Cordelli talked about Alex Golish. He said, Rob, and Pete is a little bit, as Brenden can attest, fairly passionate guy, an Italian Catholic from Philly. We're actually in Neshaminy, Pennsylvania. But he said Alex Golish 2 or 3 times a week for the 2 years he was at Tennessee would come to Nashville to recruit the mid-state. All right. And he said he'd come in my office. We'd talk ball for, hours. He goes, the guy has a standard. And he said, the decorum prohibits me repeating the language sometimes used by the guy, but he's Russian. He got out of Russia with $400 in his family. He takes nothing for granted, and he lives by the mantra, to give the Navy SEALs credit from the leadership book. The only easy day was yesterday. Alex Golish, John Sumrall, and Silverfield are going to be difference makers. I know Bartu doesn't think that Arkansas job's a good job, but it's the problem at Arkansas is they've not recruited the state as well as they should have. When you get 40% of the state roster is from in-state kids, Arkansas rolls. Silverfield Monday got 4 commitments, and Dudley Dawson said, man, it's like he was almost recruiting these kids before he got there. I was like, oh, really?
Yeah.
Have you noticed we've got a bunch of high-energy young coaches
like Brad Bellamy
now?
Correct.
Brad, you look just like Roman Harper. He's supposed to be on here with us. He got stuck on a project that the SEC Network has him doing, and hopefully it's about this podcast. I don't know. I'm kidding. But
in the words of Hugh Freeze, Rob, he's close. He's
we're
really
real
close.
That man brought me a Super Bowl. He gets a pass on anything.
By the way, Rob, I just want to say, I think you've gotten a little bit like, I guess, what is it, tortured with Hugh Freeze and playing golf so much. I think every coach is like, I've never known a coach not to be a 4 a.m.er that shows up and is talking ball all that time. I just think you've had Captain Mulligan up there for too long.
Yeah, well, but
hitting the hottie toddy at the
we've had the defeated man there, and I said that when he first got there, when he whined about going to Cal. Quickly, Lauren Smith and Larry Munson on the Georgia football broadcast. Lauren, quickly, what do you got? Well, Larry, Brad Bellarmine from Landers Ford is here to tell us about the great vehicles here. Brad, tell us real quick, and we're going to talk some ball. What's going on at Poplar and Houston Levy at Landers Ford, the greatest corporate partner in America with the finest people and the service department on earth?
Man, I appreciate that. I don't know about America, but I'll take Memphis. I'll take Memphis.
Okay.
So first things first, our guy Jalen Wells, tomorrow afternoon from 4 to 6 o'clock, is going to be coming to Landers Ford at Houston Levy and Poplar for a meet and greet. So photo ops, autographs. We already printed off these copies for folks to get signed. So really excited about Jalen coming out. He'll be here 4 to 6 o'clock tomorrow, Saturday. We'll have the SEC championship game on in the background, but Jalen's an unbelievable man, unbelievable story. Really unrecruited, not known talent, and then ended up getting an opportunity at Washington State, which he earned, deserved to get, and then he got NBA draft and then first round pick. So he's coming out tomorrow. Excited about that. Other big thing we got going on: 0% plus no payment for 90 days. F-150, Explorer, Transit, Lightning, Mach-E, Escape. So right now, guys, 0%. We haven't had that in a long time. Carry over from November. We were up 20 units in November on the new side. So a lot of momentum going on, guys, coming in December. Always one of the biggest months of the year. And then we also got big lease payment programs on Bronco Sport. So it's a great time to buy a new car. Also a used car. We got over 100 used cars in inventory. Over half of those are certified, which means they've got extra inspection and extra warranty backed by Ford. So come on out and see us. We also are going to have a team downtown today. And then tomorrow morning, St. Jude Marathon is tomorrow here in Memphis. It is the single largest day fundraiser for St. Jude. People come over from all over the world to run in the marathon tomorrow. We're a big sponsor of St. Jude and the marathon. So at 12 today, I'll be heading down there to work our booth. And we got a couple of photo booths set up. One of the cool things that St. Jude does is they have a big donation program for people that run. And if you get over a certain allotment of dollars that you raise, you become a St. Jude's hero. We have 2 expeditions with all of those heroes that have raised a certain dollar amount with their name on it. So it's really fun. People come out as they're doing the registration for the marathon. They'll find their name on the expedition, get pictures with it. So, and then we also have 2 transits that we've wrapped, and people get markers and they write the names of the people that they're running for. So what's their St. Jude story? And so every year it's a really cool thing that we do with St. Jude, and we just love our partnership with them. You know, they are a huge imprint on not only Memphis and the Mid-South, but the world. And it's amazing when you do a tour there, just all the impact and footprints that you hear. So, so that's what we got going on this weekend, Rob, just a little bit, but it's a normal weekend. Then we got Collierville parade tonight that the former mayor of Collierville is going to be in one of our cars because he's the man of the year in Collierville, and then the Germantown parade tomorrow. So just, a few things going on here at Landers Ford this weekend.
Y'all are involved in everything.
Brad, big news. Brad, big news coming out of the White House for your industry too. Yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, Farley was the first with his torch about EVs and how everything was going to be electric, and now he's gone the other side. But hey, as the wind blows, so do most of our business leaders and politicians, right?
That's right.
You operate in the market as it exists, right?
That's right.
Well, and it's like the free market, college football. I'm going to get in. This is really cool because Roman, I know he was going to be on with us. Hopefully he can join us, but if not, we'll get him on next week.
He's interviewing for the Penn State job.
That's right. Did y'all see the little meme that came out about the coach, the Fonz from South Central State University? He's in. Yeah, hey, look,
the Mud Dogs.
What?
This is like Brody Croyle Sachs.
Yes.
Honk if you interviewed him.
Here's what we think. What we're hearing around Memphis. What we're hearing is Jimmy Sexton is mad. He's got the red ass about James Franklin being fired, and he's pushing his clients away from that job. Maybe that's true. I don't know, but I know this much. Nobody wants that job. And in the recruiting rankings, national signing date, which is now a non-event because it doesn't matter, their Missouri State and Montana State, the Bobcats out in Bozeman, had higher ranked recruiting classes than Penn State. What would Junior Samples say on that? BR 549 ain't gonna get you any wins. That's awful. Anybody want to comment on that? That is unheard of.
I mean,
you better know what you're going to get before you fire what you got.
Yep.
I'm kind of surprised at the way Penn State rallied around their interim head coach. He's not been more of on the plan. I feel like that might have been the right play, is to just give him the shot. I mean, they played well after they had that losing streak and Franklin got let go. And I don't know him at all. I don't know the backstory, but it just seems like the way that team played at this point, having some idea of what they're going to do and how they're going to go forward is a lot better than sitting here on the sidelines as everybody else is making their moves. So, and I think now all of these teams that just lost somebody are going to be ahead of them too. I mean, I expect by Monday that some of these American jobs that have opened up with all the talent of coaches leaving are all going to be filled. And I see your comment here somebody put on there about Tim Cramsey. So I can neither confirm nor deny, but I wouldn't be surprised about that happening.
Yeah, and I'm telling you what, that's David Baker, a good friend of mine. He's also in my hunting club. He's also the one who puts everybody in the hunting spots. You got to love David Baker. He is a very smart man. He's like the number 2 assessor for all of Shelby County properties. But that Cramsey is a really good coach, Doug Dean. And Doug, I want your thoughts right now on SEC football 1 through 16 compared to a year ago, and then compare it to, say, the Big Ten.
Well, I'm not gonna cover.
No, I know, but
teams.
just your overall feel for the league.
No,
that's a lot.
I think there's a loss of intellectual capital coaching moxie when Saban retired, and it may be that leveled the playing field a little bit, but my goodness. Does anyone think Texas won't take a step and be pretty damn salty next year, assuming Arch comes back? I think he's got to come back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He's starting to figure it out. Sark stays. It's hard to imagine. I would not pick LSU to struggle next year. It's a different question. Do they make the playoff? Because it's brutal competition, and Duffy knows that. So I think the difference to me, I'd love to get Brad's thoughts. He watches this closely. A couple of years ago, most of us would have said there are 3 or 4 teams that have a realistic chance to win the SEC and make a deep run in the playoff, get a bye in the playoff. I think that might be soon. Preseason, you're going to start having to say 7 or 8. Am I wrong?
Well, it was a hot.
What do you think, Brad?
The news broke on your show last week, Rob, about who was going to flip from Georgia to Vanderbilt. So now that Vanderbilt has a real quarterback next year, they're probably going to win the national championship because that's all they needed. So,
and you know why that happened, Brad? Damn it! When Auburn got Vandy as a permanent opponent, then Vanderbilt starts flipping Bama and Georgia.
Well, and then Theo Vaughn starts becoming a huge Vanderbilt, a New Orleans Irish Catholic. I mean, who is not from New Orleans? I mean, my God, I love that. Absolutely. It's the greatest food city in the world. Yeah.
And we're all related.
Here's another one. You think about this. Pete Cordelli said it 2 or 3 weeks ago on our Monday show. He goes, hey, and of course Pete's the quarterback guy, guru, and he's got a book on him. But you know what, guys? I think, Brad and Doug, you hit on it. Vanderbilt now is tapping in. They've got Kid Rock recruiting these kids. They've got Theo Vaughn. Nashville's become the new Las Vegas. It's become the young kids. They want to go there. And by the way, I love this guy, Indian Pass Pirate, Cape Sandblast down there. And that's not quite the Big Bend, but it's Port St. Jose, Mexico Beach, that area. What's the unique thing about Mexico Beach, Florida? It's 2 time zones in the same city or something like that. Yeah, it's unique. But love Indian Pass Pirate and all of our viewers. Thank you so much. Frank, how excited is the LSU fan base right now?
Off the charts.
And you don't want to be, I don't believe in being realistic. I've heard that in sales. No, I'm never realistic. I think I'm going to get every sale I ask for.
You need to You need to bottle this moment, Frank, because in 5 years you're not going to feel this way. Just don't.
That's okay. Hey, look, I lost the greatest of all time. This would be nothing if Lane leaves. I've dealt with true depression. This will be nothing. I know what we're getting into. Maybe the Ole Miss folks didn't, but I know we're on borrowed time. He's going to go to Dallas or go to somewhere, go to Bama. He's going to do it. That's okay. I want to rack up as much hardware as I can between now and then. And this thing about Lane never winning anything, that shit's changing because he's got the resources. He's got the financial commitment. And look, what does LSU always need? 2019, we had the greatest offense. Then we came back with Jaden Daniels and had even a better offense statistically, and the kid won the Heisman. We just had a crappy defense. You get LSU to play offense, we can scrap together a defense if we got somebody other than Matt House as the defensive coordinator. So confidence is very high on the Bayou right now. And look, I'm sorry, Ole Miss. We have empathy, but we've lived through it. You got to get through it. And let me tell you, you better pace yourself because you're only at week 1. We'd have lived 17 years watching that man in Tuscaloosa. You better pace yourself.
I think we have to change our thinking. More and more things in college football become like the NFL a little bit. And the notion that you have to have a Beamer 20-year tenure at your place for continuity to win big, you just don't. The NFL teams frequently change coaches, and it doesn't always translate into disruption. So it's not that you want to change coaches every 3 years, but I think you're not keeping kids 4 years anyway. You're having to teach them systems they come in from the portal, and your team you'll never have the same roster 3 deep year to year. So I think some programs like LSU, like Alabama, others, if they need to, they can change coaches without it setting you back 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, but you could also end up like Florida and change coaches and just get a couple of bad coaches down the line, and 10 years later, you're here and you're excited about this coach. Summer, I just think I always just feel like Florida's a little bit like that's like the story that you tell to the teams that don't want to make a bad choice, right? You can be a blue blood school and still end up like Florida. And look, Florida is, what do we hear from Billy Napier? Rebuilding. Now coaches come in, you hear different. I got a plan to win tomorrow, and I got a plan to win in 2 years, right? Because you don't got 4 years anymore. We don't have franchise tags, anything like that. And I'm not to digress here, but I did a fun thing last night where I sat in with AI. I said, "Hey, AI, teach me about the NCAA and how these decisions are made. Teach me how this goes down." And it will ask you questions and stuff. And it went on for 45 minutes. And then finally at the end, it just said basically, Frank Sankey runs the entire show. He's God, and that's it. And the SEC should break off and be a super conference with the rest of their big schools, and that was it. I mean, that's what AI is telling us to do. And then you've got, Dan Mullen saying, we got to scrap everything and just start over. It's crazy right now in that all of that sense. So I just say a telltale story to any coach. You're once the fall from grace is one step, right?
Yeah, it doesn't take much. I mean, Tennessee 2007 played for the SEC championship. 15 years later, they finally won double-digit wins in the 22 season, and they broke a 15 straight losing streak to Alabama. Doug Dean, I'll tell you right now, I'm going to predict it. Ryan Silverfield, 71 new players he brought into Memphis last year. I think in the last month, he and Summerall and a lot of these coaches were totally distracted because it's obvious they were being courted by other schools. But Doug, your thoughts on the ability to bring in players. Auburn didn't have a great recruiting class this year, not by what they had been doing. But with the portal and Auburn's collective, and I know what they've got, that can flip like that.
I'm a fan of tampering early and often with players. No, look, it's if you've listened to these GMs at the SEC schools and coaches that will talk openly, in portal gets what evaluations? When they hit refresh and you see this player pop up on the portal, you got to offer him immediately or you're on the outside looking in. So I guess they're evaluating as the season goes on. I think this guy I'm sure teams are looking at Deuce Knight saying that if Golesh brings in his quarterback from South Florida, and I can't blame him if he does, plug and play, then all of a sudden you're at risk of what looks like a really elite quarterback in Deuce Knight. The question is, how quickly can he get there? So I would be a little nervous. There's a higher margin of error for Silverfield and having to bring that many portal guys in. But what choice does he have?
No, you don't. And Frank, around the SEC, you look at Georgia. Kirby likes to build with the kids he recruits out of high school. Do you think LSU last year they had the portal class ranked number 1 in the country, 12 4-stars, and still went 7-5? Is that leadership or is that just bad selection?
Coaching and leadership.
Yeah.
Kelly
lack of leadership.
Yeah, Kelly was asleep at the wheel. He was enjoying his wine cellar way more than he was the football facility.
Yeah. I totally agree. When I watched that Netflix special, Doug, and it looked like something off of Home and Garden TV. Yeah, I want my SEC coach driving an F-150, going hunting and fishing and showing his family. It was all about him. He look. I know we all have egos, but Brian Kelly didn't give a damn about LSU.
None.
He cared about himself only. You know what? What does Dave Tompkins always say? Leaders eat last, Doug Dean.
Hey, Duff, I was going to say, and I know you embrace this, I think LSU's the Darth Vader of the SEC now. Yeah. You agree? I mean, that's not bad. Embrace it, man. I think LSU's built to handle that and be the bully on the block. And, the people will vilify Kiffin because of how this transition went. But just embrace being Darth Vader. Alabama was that under Saban.
When I left the second round basketball game in 1990, when we played in Thompson Bowling Arena in Tennessee, when we had Shaq and Stanley and Chris Jackson, when we were leaving, it was two old boys walking down the ramp. He goes, "I don't care if LSU was playing the Russians. I think I'd cheer for the Russians." Hey, look, this is nothing new, man. We're different. We talk different than everybody else. We eat different than everybody else. We get passed out drunk at funerals. We're okay being different. We don't have a problem. We had a coach that was eating grass on the sideline. Yeah, I'm cool with crazy.
My Bama friend said I would pull for Russia. Well, we just hired a Russian coach.
Yeah. Hey, Doug, I have it on good accord that borscht will be now served on the menu. Yeah, borscht. And when the team comes out in the tunnel at Auburn next year, they're going to say "niet."
It's not going to be Tiger walking. It's not going to be Tiger walking. It's not going to be Tiger walking anymore. It's going to be Tiger forced march.
And also Doug Dean, Drago is going to be on the big jumbotron before the game.
Absolutely.
From Rocky.
The memes are going to be insane. But I would tell you, don't forget that he also at 7 years old fled Russia to the U.S.
This guy's a tough dude.
Built-in tough.
If Pete Cordelli likes you, I promise you, Pete would rip you. I know Pete 32 years. He loves Golish. Look, Goal to Go coming up next. Frank, I'm here. I'd love to help you if you need me. I love that show. Watch it, everybody. And I'm going to tell y'all something. Thank everybody for watching the show. For executive producer Brenden Martin, remember, and I mean this 110%, most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We're all blessed in so many ways. Find ways to help others. And if this show makes your day, it makes our day. Share it and like us. And all of our sponsors are at Sidelines.live. We love them. We're blessed. And stay tuned. We'll be right back with Goal to Go. Have a great weekend, everybody.
See you guys.
See you, buddy. All right, Ian.